Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another Armajet weapon balance video. Running hot on the heels of my previous look at the primary weapons, that had quite a decent amount of success, got a lot of positive feedback. I thought I'd have a similar sort of look at the secondary weapons in the game. This time I'm not going to be springboarding off anyone's post, I am doing this one as the instigator, the from scratch, looking at all 9 of the secondary weapons in the game, giving my thoughts and opinions on where they sit. Are they useful? What kind of situations can you use them in? What would I do to improve them if I think they need improving, or nerf them if I think they need nerfing? As with the previous video, there is going to be nothing overly flashy in the visual department here, mainly me talking with just the weapon spinning in the background so you know which weapon I'm talking about. As such, if you do just want to put the kettle on, grab a biscuit or something and listen to my thoughts, you're not going to miss out on anything special, so fair warning. Anyway guys, let's jump right in, looking at the secondary weapons, starting off with the frag grenade. Now, the frag grenade is, of course, it's the first weapon. It's standard issue, I think, is a good term for this. I don't like saying starting weapon because it makes it sound beginner and basic. Standard issue means it's still solid, but, you know, everyone has it. Frag grenade is standard issue. It does a decent whack of damage. It's got a large explosion to it. The curve trajectory means you can lob it over obstructions and over pilots or through, like, the top point on magma, that kind of thing. The frag grenade does a decent whack of damage. I really don't think anything much needs to be changed about the frag at all. I think this is possibly one of the most reliable and solid secondaries. I mean, you can twin this with pretty much any weapon in the game and you'll do well with it. I personally like putting it with a tremor just because you can kind of double tap it. You fire the tremor and throw the frag, or in my case, I throw the frag first, then quick shot the tremor. The frag hits them, the tremor, they've then got 4 tremor shots to avoid or they die. Frag grenade, I think, is genuinely solid. There is nothing I would change or improve or nerf here. I think it's as good as it's going to get without being overpowered. The EMP is a bit of a controversial weapon, I think is a good way of saying it. As you'll see, mine's only level 3. I do actually use the EMP grenade fairly frequently, but getting kills with this thing is nigh on impossible. In fact, if you're looking for something for kills, that's where the frag grenade comes in. The EMP is not a I want to kill you with this weapon. The whole point of the EMP is ultimately, it's very much a support secondary. If you throw this onto a drone or a turret, it will destroy it instantly, and if you throw it at someone who's got shields, including the Exo Super Shield, it will clear that shield instantly. Interestingly enough, the EMP is actually technically the weapon that can do the most damage, but can never one-shot anyone. EMP always does a flat 25 damage, plus removes shields. If someone has a shield, that's an additional 50 health. If someone has the Exo Super Shield, that's an additional 50 on top of that, I think, or is it 100? Then if you've got the 25 damage after that. So if you double damage an EMP and throw it on someone who's got a shield and an Exo Super Shield, it's doing like 250 worth of damage. Is there anything I would change about the EMP? Not really. If you up the damage for it, it's just going to replace frag grenades and things like that. It's got a decent blast radius to it already. It's got a fairly short cooldown. If anything, I might reduce the cooldown just a little bit. Just because the EMP, ultimately, it's a very situational weapon. You want it there for when someone throws up a drone or throws up a turret, and that is like the main use for it. And obviously, if it's got a long cooldown, then it's not necessarily ready, and you want your entire team. It's so situational that I kind of feel that it needs to be available at all times, just because so few people are going to be carrying it otherwise. Moving on to the sticky grenade. This is actually one of my favourite weapons, especially if you're using an up-close and personal build. You can just whack this onto someone who survives. They fly away, get that little warning triangle above their head, and explode. It does a decent amount of damage. It's got a decent lob range. If you do miss, it sticks to the floor or the wall or whatever behind them. It doesn't bounce like a frag grenade does. But 100 damage is a fairly solid blast. It's a one-hit kill if they don't have a shield. Which, in fairness, kind of, it's one of those weapons that if you have 100% accuracy, the sticky grenade is awesome. Kind of like the Nightfall. If you don't have 100% accuracy, you're going to miss with it a lot and do nothing with it. I think the sticky grenade is in a solid position right now. There is nothing about it I would change. The incendiary grenade. Now, the incendiary is probably my favourite of all the secondaries, mainly because I'm very much a support gunner and a support player. I like to use things like the Venom and the Ripper, or, you know, go zoning with things like the Locust just to keep people out of lanes. The incendiary grenade is a great way to do that, as you can chuck it on the floor, carpet an area in fire, and it deals a decent whack of damage. Again, the incendiary grenade has a decent enough cooldown. It does a decent enough little mini explosion if it hits someone directly as they're on the floor. And the fire damage is, well, it's fire damage. It does a decent amount of tick, and if you hit it, then you fly out of it, you are still taking damage. But if you sit in it, my god, you just roast. So the incendiary grenade, again, comes up to me as one that I wouldn't necessarily change. I think it's pretty solid as it is. The Widow Blade continues the themes of secondaries that I wouldn't change. I promise you there is stuff in this video that isn't just, oh no, this is fine, I wouldn't change it. The Widow Blade, it's got a lovely curved arc to it, it's got a very short cooldown and a very small amount of damage. It makes it quick and easy just to fire at someone, finish them off, or do a quick bit of damage early on so that your Black Tusk can then rip through them. The Widow Blade is one of the more commonly used weapons in competitive play. There's a reason for that. It's solid, it's got a quick cooldown, it's got a decent enough chunk of damage, and it's fast enough to throw at someone very, very quickly and suddenly and just catch them off guard. I love the Widow Blade. Right, now we're coming to the things that I said about changes. The Enforcer. Now the Enforcer as a sidearm, it's one of those things you can pull out quickly, snap off a quick shot, does a decent whack of damage, and ultimately, I think it does too much damage. Yeah. Bear with me here. Bear with me here. I know the Marauder is better for this, but when it comes to things like double tapping, you know, you've got your long claw and your Enforcer. You fire the long claw and the Enforcer at almost the same time. Especially if you're on PC, you just kind of go click, click, and boom, you fire those two shots. This to me is slightly overpowered. I would like to see the Enforcer have its damage halved, but or something like that, greatly reduced is what I'm saying, but also have its reload rapidly increased. So I'm talking literally like you can snap this thing off every 2 seconds. That kind of ridiculous reload speed. It's a pistol. There is no reason that it should take 30 seconds or whatever to reload. It's just a patoon. Patoon. I think you should almost be able to use it as a primary, but it only deals like 20 damage. It's a quick top off, hit them, and away you go sort of thing. To me, that would make the Enforcer a very different weapon to the Marauder. The Marauder as it stands once you've got the Marauder, there's almost no reason to ever use the Enforcer. There is a difference between their cooldown, but with the Marauder doing more damage, well, we'll come to the Marauder later, but the Enforcer, I would genuinely love to see the Enforcer have its reload time dramatically reduced, but its damage dramatically reduced to go with it, just so that it gives you that ability to just pang, 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 hit someone and finish them off. The Proximity Mine is the next one. This, again, is one of those weapons that I feel isn't quite there. I love this weapon. I mean, it's got some absolutely great skins. I mean, look at the pizza one, for crying out loud. But the Proximity Mine itself, it's a very situational weapon. On Fuel Frenzy, this thing can be utterly brutal. You shove this somewhere that you know your opponent is going to land, and I don't necessarily mean on the fuel dispenser. I mean, you can watch one of your teammates get blasted. You can't get down there just yet, but you drop a proximity mine down into where they drop the fuel cells. Now, anyone who comes in and swoops in is going to, if they're on your team, they're fine. If they're on the enemy team, they take a proximity mine to the face. That's awesome, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of that kind of stuff in competitive play as we get more support roles come in. I'm also looking forward to the possibility of one day there being like a capture the flag mode, and a capture the flag mode as well. I think the proximity mine would really come into its own. I think new game modes will really bring the proximity mine up to scratch, so there's not much I want to change on this. I would possibly make the proximity mine stick around a bit longer if it's not triggered, simply because I think the proximity mine's duration of it being on the floor should be equal to its reload, in inverted commas, time. Simply because you should be able to have a 100% uptime with a prox mine. It sucks to drop a prox mine in a position you know people are going to go, and it just kind of disappears before someone gets there. That sucks. But then when you I think having it so you could have it as 100% uptime would just be really helpful. Because then if no one does trigger it, you can just replace it back in that spot, knowing that someone is eventually going to get there. That to me would fix the prox mine, just make it last longer on the floor. Now we come back to the Marauder, and move up to stock for the image. Now, the Marauder, as I said, at the moment it's kind of Enforcer 2.0. It's got a longer reload than the Enforcer, but it deals more damage than the Enforcer. I would, again, very much like to see this almost like the Enforcer with its damage reduced, so that double tapping isn't a thing, but then have its damage, its reload reduced as well. I think rather than the Enforcer, what I would like to see the Marauder do as a secondary, I don't even know if this is possible, pure pipe dream. I would love the Marauder to be a proper revolver. It actually has 6 bullets before you need to reload it. Like, take off a whack of the damage so you can't double tap with it as easily, but, like, so you can't take away a shielded opponent in one hit every single time. But there are 6 bullets before it has to reload, and then it has a long reload time. I'm talking like, say, the Ripper has, where you fire the 3 discs and then it reloads all 3. With the Marauder, what I would love to see is it literally has 6 shots. Every time you fire one of those shots, it comes down, and you could literally go pang, 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 fire all of them off, and then you have to reload. But make that reload really quite long. Like, I'm talking a 6-second reload. No, crikey, longer than 6 seconds. Scrap that. I'm talking like a 30-second reload here once you fired off that last shot. And you don't reload it until all of the shots are empty. You don't go pang pang and then just wait 30 seconds and you're back up to 6. I genuinely think that this should be one of those weapons that you have to clear the entire chamber before you reload. Let me know your thoughts on that. To be frank, I love the idea of a Marauder being a quick fire sidearm that has those 6 shots that you can dump all 6 fairly quickly if you want to, but then you've got the long reload, or you can use 1 or 2 at a time and then you get the long reload later. The Enforcer, conversely, has a significantly faster reload overall, but the lower damage to compensate. So you've got one that you've got the 6 shots and then you need to reload the whole thing, and you've got one that only has 1 shot at a time, but it reloads much, much quicker. To go back to the Enforcer, I'm literally talking about it having maybe a 5 or 10 second cooldown. Yes, that kind of fast. Faster than the Widow Blade. And finally, we come to the much aligned Cluster Grenade. Now, the Cluster Grenade, actually, I really enjoy this as a weapon. I like to have this with something like a Typhoon or a Wildfire. I wait until there's a group of people coming, you lob the Cluster Grenade into the middle of them, you hit all 3 of those people, and then you just auto-aim with the Typhoon or the Wildfire, and you roast all of them in seconds. I've got so many triple kills like that, it is unspeakable. That said, we were having this debate on the Discord recently about whether or not the Cluster Grenade is actually any kind of good at all. As it stands, the Cluster Grenade, I think it is I agree with people, it is too random. If you throw the Cluster Grenade in certain ways, then you're guaranteed that the way that the grenade explodes, the shrapnel continues onwards. If I throw it to the side, it explodes and it continues in that same trajectory. That said, if the Cluster Grenade just kind of sits there on the floor, the explosion is terrible. It doesn't really do much. The only advantage to the Cluster Grenade over a frag grenade in basic figures is that if you throw a frag grenade at someone at point blank range, you kill yourself too. The Cluster Grenade doesn't do that. The initial explosion does not do self-damage. I just would like to see the Cluster Grenade have a bigger explosion than the frag grenade. The initial explosion doesn't do anything, but all the shrapnel does. I don't know how that would work, but I think getting rid of some of the randomness of the Cluster Grenade, of where that shrapnel actually explodes outwards, I think that's what the Cluster Grenade needs. It needs to just be less reliant on pure luck as to where that shrapnel goes. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the secondary weapons there. Do you have any thoughts on any of these weapons? Have I said something that you think, oh my goodness, no, that would make the weapon overpowered, or that's ridiculously stupid, or no, you're using the proximity mine wrong, or no, I think the sticky grenade is overpowered, or the EMP grenade needs some serious buffing? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you're watching this on the Armajet subreddit, put comments down below as well so that the devs can read this. If you're not watching it on the Armajet subreddit, get on the Armajet subreddit, find this video, then actually leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below the actual video there so that the devs can read it and get a feel of what's going on there. It just allows me to collate all of that sort of opinion together into one. Anyway guys, that about wraps it up for this video. Thank you ever so much for watching. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Happy sailing, and I'll see you in the arena soon.